While the kids argue over whether the PS3 or Xbox 360 was the better console back in the late 2000s, the Wii was taking the world by storm. Sure, it may be an underpowered console with half the library being tainted with shovelware, but you can't deny the initial success and vision for Nintendo's fifth home console. I mean, come on. They turned a TV remote into a video game controller. That's not something you normally say 15 years ago.
Nintendo was struggling to reach audience appeal with the last two consoles, that being the N64 and GameCube. The N64 was a laughingstock for still using proprietary cartridges with limited storage and whatever the hell this three-legged controller is. While the GameCube has recently gained a cult following, it just could not compete against a juggernaut like the PS2. It's obvious that Nintendo needed a different strategy, one that thinks outside the box. That's where the Wii came in. One of the most elegantly designed consoles we've had, with a TV remote style controller with motion capabilities. You can mimic anything with this bad boy.
The biggest challenge with video game console launches are the launch titles themselves. You need compelling software to even make the system worth buying in the first place. I mean, what else was I gonna do with this? Navigate through Wii channels? That's one way to kill time.
The Wii had Twilight Princess going for it, except that was a cross-gen game mostly developed with the GameCube in mind. I feel like everyone has completely forgotten about the Excite series like Excite Truck, and as for everything else...
Stop, you bastard!
Kind of justifying my statement about the console's library. But there's one revolutionary title that changed everything we knew about motion control gaming. I mean, the original codename for the Wii wasn't just for show.
That, my friend, is...
Wii Sports. This was a free pack-in title that shook the world back in its initial launch in 2006. It's a fairly simple setup consisting of 5 sports to demonstrate the motion capabilities of the Wiimote controllers. This was a casual's dream come true. Just wave the remote around and you'll be a tennis player in no time. Or maybe a relaxing game of golf.
On this round, it's a little tap behind me.
Baseball is an absolute no-brainer. It still surprises me with how well the bat registers the Wiimote controller.
If there's one thing that everyone can get behind, it's bowling.
One of the most simple and accessible games that defined Wii Sports. Hell, grandparents were even playing this. Seriously, if you are not a gamer, chances are you still bought a Wii just so you could turn it into a bowling machine. Also, this never gets old.
But what about something that could be paired with a nunchuck?
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, it's honestly weird knowing that having an analog stick of all things would be considered an accessory. I get it design-wise, but kinda lame assuming that half of the Wii's library probably supports it. Anyways, let's hope the extra money was worth it back in 2006.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this one.
It's not bad by any means, but not remotely close to being as intuitive as I would like it. I feel like the motion tracking would either have an input delay or just not register at all. To be fair, I know I'm not the only one flailing my arms around when playing this, and boxing isn't the main highlight anyway, so it could be worse. Now, after looking back at Wii Sports for the first time in over a decade, it's alright.
Holy shit! A 21-year-old just gave Wii Sports a mediocre review!
Now, I'm not saying this is bad by any means, but it's definitely suited for a free pack-in title. I mean, look at 1-2-Switch. Did you really expect us to pay $50 for this as an individual launch title? Even then, you can't deny the worldwide phenomenon during the Wii's initial launch.
Wii Sports showed that the Wii can be enjoyed by everyone. It was the system seller and a great showcase of how the Wii can be best utilized. But when you get down to the core game itself, it's honestly just a tech demo that people can play at home. But I just can't help but feel this could be expanded upon. Probably because they made a sequel called Wii Sports Resort.
And holy crap, this is a monumental improvement over the original. You see, the Wiimote uses accelerometers for its motion capabilities. Wii Sports definitely has tricks up their sleeves, but a lot of times those functions result in simply shaking the Wii remote in other titles. It's totally functional, but we can all agree that it has its limits once you start seeing ads like this. I've yet to play Red Steel, but the fact that the original title was so lackluster, Ubisoft had to make a sequel with the Wii Motion Plus requirement in order to live up to its potential is saying a lot. Speaking of which, the Wii Motion Plus adapter. This extension enhances your motion capabilities by now including a gyroscope, much more optimal for some of the advanced titles out there. So much in fact that Nintendo remodeled Wiimotes with the Motion Plus accessory included back in 2010. And what better way to pair it with than Wii Sports Resort? 12 sports to play now, more than twice the game list we had in the original. Swordplay, wakeboarding, frisbee, archery, basketball, table tennis, golf, bowling, power cruising, canoeing, cycling, and all the air sports like skydiving and airplanes. All of which are located within the tropical Woohoo Island. This was my 9-year-old self dream back in 2009. Swordplay was so much cooler than boxing, it terrified my grandmother with how many knees I demolished. Frisbee really tests your throwing skills far more than any other sports, and oh my god, that dog is adorable! Table tennis is significantly faster than regular tennis, which I prefer, especially when I test my endurance with the return challenge. This was my bread and butter. Golf is definitely more refined with the Motion Plus in mind. Okay, look, I've made a hole-in-one at least once in my life, and I need you to take my word on that. Bowling is still great, but now it has 100-pin bowling. Yes! Best of all is the island flyover. It's very simple, just rotate your Wiimote to fly the airplane around Woohoo Island, but you can find over 100 landmarks to discover, and oh shit, that's where the Sword Stadium's at, and this closed tennis course, because the dog stole all the balls, so that's why we resorted to frisbee and table tennis.
There's a lore to this franchise. All the other sports I haven't mentioned are simply cherry on top. Not my personal favorites, but a very welcome addition. This is Wii Sports being perfected, making it one of the best games in the Wii library. Now, there are other Wii games in the series outside of Wii Sports, like Wii Play, Wii Music. Wii Sports Resort is the best Wii game in the series. I've covered 2 so far, so what about the 3rd game for the Wii U? It may have been doomed for failure, but surely we will get a new iteration to kick off Nintendo's least successful home console to date.
That'll cover us for another year. In late 2013, we got Wii Sports Club. By releasing individual sports separately on the Wii U Eshop throughout 2014 to own or rent.
Rent!
It's not a bad idea to add more content over time, except we only ended up getting 5 sports in total, all of which would be completely pointless as Nintendo is going to close down the digital eShop anyways. Also, they gave you the option to rent Wii Sports digitally back in 2013. Seriously though, who rented digital games back then? But thank God for the physical release in 2014 that skips all the initial bullshit. So, let's talk about it. Now, out of the Wii Sports Trilogy, I like to call it, I've never actually played Wii Sports Club because, gasp, was never actually one of the 10 people who owns a Wii U until 2 years ago.
Nostalgia isn't taking me over on this one.
Like I said earlier, only 5 sports again. But what do we actually get here? Do we have a new iteration of tennis like badminton or volleyball? How about football?
That could be a great idea if you think about it. Maybe use a Wii U gamepad to command a group of Miis? I don't know, I'm just pitching ideas for sports I don't give a shit about. I'll do anything to prevent myself from emulating Madden on the PS2. God damn it!
Actually, How about using the Wii U gamepad as your first-person perspective while flying, just like...
Yeah, that's a bad example.
Paddleball? Dual sword play? No. What we have here is tennis, bowling, golf, baseball, and boxing.
So, instead of getting Wii Sports for the Wii U, we got an HD remake of Wii Sports on the Wii U. Why?
To its credit though, it still uses Wii Motion Plus, and now features online play.
Yes! Alright, maybe I could give this a chance, since now I can play tennis online. Oh, okay. Wii Sports doesn't have a ton going for it right now.
Well, it's definitely Wii Sports in HD. And I don't think the Wii Motion Plus makes any difference for tennis. And bowling is still great, but it's the exact same experience I've already had with Wii Sports Resort. Maybe more people are playing this online. Okay, at the very least, the next 3 sports has something going for it, like golf. I'll give Nintendo this, I've never felt immersion quite like this before. Except I always end up staring at the golf ball on my gamepad than the actual scenery on TV. It's just odd. Baseball. Swing the bat with the Wii remote.
Strike!
Played this before. Pitch by pressing buttons on the Wii U gamepad. And move it around to catch the ball.
Never have I been disappointed in being a Wii U owner until now.
Okay, boxing is weird, as you would have to use 2 Wii Motion Plus remotes in order to play it. I think Nintendo forgot that the nunchuck actually existed for this reason, but on paper, knowing that you use 2 Wii Motion Plus controllers to play boxing should offer a more refined experience. Except, it feels just as clunky, if not more than the original Wii Sports boxing. I was expecting something similar to swordplay where I would easily swing my arms around to beat the crap out of each other, but that's not the case here. It still relies on the accelerometer input to make the punches, but the added annoyance of leaning to the side and missing your shots. At least you can play it with 1 Wiimote when playing 2 players. I was never a boxing fan to begin with.
And that's Wii Sports Club. Not necessarily a bad game, but as a follow-up to the original Wii Sports, there isn't much going for it to convince people to buy a Wii U. Seriously, half of the sports doesn't even use the Wii U gamepad. What am I supposed to get out of this? Sports facts? You gotta be shitting me. Now, as a follow-up to Wii Sports Resort, it's so inferior to a content-filled game. As someone who's just trying to buy their own copy in the secondhand market, no! The Wii Sports is an interesting franchise to look back upon. It started off as a revolutionary title to kick off the Wii console generation, only to have a lackluster ending that doesn't even know how to fully utilize the Wii U. Even outside those critical standpoints, the main thing that's keeping Wii Sports relevant is mostly nostalgia. Although, let's be real, at this point, I wouldn't expect Nintendo of all people to make a new sports title 5 years after the Switch launched just because of nostalgia.
Nintendo Switch Sports. It's a sequel to the Wii Sports series that you can play with family and friends.
At least they're not offering rent to play golf. Alright. Look, dog, I know you're pissed.